get ready to throw down.
All right, we're going to start from here. Welcome to the show, everybody. Today, we are talking about how important it is to, or isn't in some cases, how much connection do you need to the product you're selling? You know, do you need to be passionate about it? Do you need to see value in it? Or you know, are you like the merc, you know, the mercenary that you can come in and just sell anything as long as like there's good money behind it? And the reason for this is because I am very much in the camp of, I think that I could kind of sell anything at this point, but there's a lot of stuff that I see no value in trying to sell, right? Like roofing, right? If I just wanted lots of money, I'd probably just go sell roofing, but man, I can't think of anything more boring, right? Not to say that guys who do roofing are bad or, you know, whatever.
Well, it's a necessity. I mean, you got to have a roof over your head, right?
Sure.
And it
right?
shouldn't leak. And if it does, you got to get it fixed.
Zero interest in roofing. Like I wouldn't even be motivated to go have conversations about it.
But what if it made you millions of dollars every year?
No.
Still nothing?
Still nothing.
The cash flow wouldn't bother you?
No.
That doesn't play a factor at all?
I mean, money's a bit of a motivator, but it's not like the end all motivator, because if it was, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be selling something else.
So would you rather struggle with something that you are super passionate about? Because this speaks to our personalities a lot. Yeah. Would you rather struggle on a day-to-day selling that thing that just you love, or go have the guaranteed money? Because I'm the guaranteed money guy. I'll go sell something because I need the revenue, because I'm working to get revenue, not because
I get bored.
Okay,
right?
And I can see your point.
Right, I need to learn something new, right?
But you also have to realize there's no perfect product, right? Everything has a particular fit, and even sometimes in a particular fit, it can get wanky or turn itself upside down. Like in our industry, when somebody brings a new product through the door and says, "Hey, do you think your docs or the people you influence would be interested in this?" I get the gist of what they're telling me about the product and what it solves the problem. But the first thing I ask is, if this is going to screw up, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Because there's the value in knowing the limitations of what your product is, knowing the audience that it addresses, and then you make the decisions on the money and on, in my opinion. So I look at it from probably both avenues.
And I think there's a guy has always told me, a guy that taught me pretty much everything I know in this business. He always says, if you truly love what you do and you're passionate about it, you'll never work a day in your life, right? That's his theory.
Yeah, I told you
that. Good. That's a good one.
That was good. You just slipped that right in there.
Zinger. But you know, he's always told me that, and that's one of the things that I probably don't agree with him on, is because the things I'm passionate about, I go to work to get the revenue to do those things outside of work. So I separate a little bit.
It's all about how you're motivated and how you're wired.
Yeah.
I think, you know.
And I watch him. You know, I watched him over the years in his business. And he truly is what he says. You know, he's passionate about it. He loves it. And whether he made $1 million, and now he always says there's a cost of living, right? I've got to cover that need. And when I cover that need, hey, if I can do that while I'm in the business that I love, that's true. You know, like that's where you should be.
Good.
Sure.
If money was not a factor and you could sell anything, right? Like the money was going to be the same, what would you sell?
Oh, man, good question.
I would. I know where I would do something like on the beach or something. You know, from a money standpoint, I would then start looking at environmental
surfboards.
Yeah, anything that would put me into the environment that really feels good to me, right? Which is being able to wear shorts or go casual. You know, being where the waves are rolling in.
The guy who wears scrubs almost every day is you know concerned about his uniform isn't comfortable enough. Go ahead.
No, it is, but I'm thinking
I want to cut the pants off at the knee.
I do. On those scrub
shorts.
Yeah, those are fun, man, because you wear them around the house and gardening and those kind of things.
I mean, I've answered this in my own head, that question a bunch of times. Not so much on the selling, but if I could do anything and money wasn't a thing, I'd fish for a living offshore. Like I'd do charters, you know. And I've always said that in my own head, like that's the one thing that always is a reoccurring passion of mine, and you can make a living out of it. And
I know a guy who does it actually in Florida.
That
I grew up with.
That brings I'm 56, and so I'm thinking, okay, I'm hoping to be done here in the next 5 years or so. So I'm looking at, I don't want to be completely done, but I want to back away from where I'm at and looking at Costa Rica or some of these what can I sink some money, because I like the interest of business, right?
Yeah.
And tinkering with business and there's where I'm taking my interest. Not that I don't like what I'm doing. It's just labor intensive, a lot of hours that I don't want to put in. So there are other reasons. I like it, but it comes at a cost, and it's usually a time, because now time is more important than money is to me.
So, Nan, I'm curious for you as the yes, like how important is it that you are interested, you see value in the thing that you're selling, right? Because you've been in healthcare for a very long time, right? Like do you ever get like antsy about like, hey, maybe I should be selling something else or in another industry or anything else? Or do you
funny that you said that. Right now, I'm getting my insurance. I want to become an insurance agent, a realtor. I just want to. So I'm started the process only to if something fails, then I want to have something to go back on. And I'm not crazy about insurance, but I can see, even in my job currently, how insurance knowledge is very important. So I don't want to ever do something that isn't advantageous to others. Of course, that's the S in me, I guess. But I think knowledge, stretching yourself, is really important. Something you said, I just think it's really important not to just be, like the roofing thing. That is completely surprising to me that you would have that opinion. But I mean, everyone's different. I just think it's weird that I don't think you're weird. I think it's weird to go, I would never ever be able to do that. And I'm thinking, I think I could do anything.
I could.
If it's not to someone's demise, of course,
Like I could sell roofing, right, and probably be successful. I just have no interest in doing it. And if I think about something and I'm like, yeah, I don't see any value. I don't see any differentiation. I don't see any of these things that like get me excited about the things that I work on. So if I don't see that in like an industry, I don't want to be there, and money's not going to be the lever that makes me make a move into something.
Yeah. Money is definitely not a lever for me.
Well, but then you also sit in just your personality type to be more into processes versus tangible items, right? Where you're maybe more into tangible items because you build things, right? So construction is take this, put it here. What does that look like? And you're like, what's your process, and how could I consult or be part of the solution? Because you're kind of befuddled there. And we sit kind of in a little bit of the middle because we sell our time, which is the value of our knowledge in diagnosing a particular patient and then putting them on the right path to recovery, or we sell the products that go into that recovery, whether it be spine surgery or some of the other things, tissues and things, accoutrements for those processes.
And one of the things you said is you didn't want to be bored, and that is so true. The first thing I sold was cough syrup, and if that was the only thing I sold, I couldn't do it. I cannot stand to be bored. So I think, pushing yourself, tweaking who you are, making something more exciting by improving your brain, basically.
It's kind of interesting because me and you kind of have a personal correlation here of you do stuff for, for the greater good of humanity.
Right. I know.
And I also kind of think that way with like building construction, especially like I built a cement plant so that they can, produce cement to make the roads.
Right.
And here's the difference between me and you as a S to a D, I think, is you're passionate. You want to be involved, and you'll never want the glory, just to know that they were taken care of. Whereas it's like when I built something, it's like, yeah, there you go. It's all for you, buddy. Like I did this. Just remember when you walk up these stairs every day, I built this for you.
Yeah.
So
but ultimately,
sense of satisfaction, different satisfactions from different, different outcomes.
But ultimately,
of the same product, right, or the same endeavor.
Yeah.
But when you help people, period, in the long run, what you get from that is great. Sure. When you see someone thriving, you're like, cool. It's so cool.
No, I love that as well. I think I just lead more towards like service-based businesses because I think there's more room to like help and build relationships. If I was just selling widgets and it was like the same widget and like everything was the same, I would be bored to tears so quick. Because the thing that I like to do is, because there's some newness about working with a new client, right? And they've got their own unique things, and I get to get in there and figure that stuff out, and I can be of help, right? If I was just selling like a prepackaged thing off the shelf that was supposed to fit everybody, I think I would lose my
that would be
my momentum.
Well, and that also brings another thought. You referenced roofing, and so you go back to your customer, the homeowner or whoever, and you go, "Wow, what a roof!" And they go, "Looks just like the one across the street."
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you discern achievement? It doesn't leak, but I've had roofs replaced, and I'm like, a little messy. Glad I'm not up on the ladder, hot outside, all those things, and I'm appreciative of the people doing it. But once it's on, I either like the color or I might have missed the color. I've done that on a roof before, changed the dynamic. And I'm like, I wish I hadn't done that, but I got to pick it. So my level of satisfaction passes really quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree with that.
Versus, say somebody paints something for me, right? Or I see, and I walk in, I'm like, wow, man, I really love that painting. A little different maybe. I don't know. If you can show where you build this building and it's unique, it's different, and so you see what I'm saying? A little more artistry than maybe just laying down roofing.
But like the novelty of anything wears off, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure whenever you guys complete a project, you guys are ramped up and the client is ramped up, and then 6 months later, it's like, oh, okay, cool, this is just HQ.
Agreed. And at the same time, like my personality swings to seeing all the bad of that project the entire time, every time I drive by it. So I never see the success.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
that's interesting.
Well, he's task oriented, right?
But do you think that makes you push harder for perfection or closer to a better product?
Absolutely. And then the next time it's like, well, we did this, whereas some people are like, hey, for example, my sales team is, filled with eyes, right? And they're always like, look, we've built 50 of these, 40-story buildings in the past 20 years. And like, these are awesome buildings. Check out the pictures of this building. Check out this. And I'm like, well, that pipe's crooked. I can see the framing of the wall. You should have done this better. Like, I see all the negative sides of it, but they're both necessary. Both outlooks are necessary, right? For the next one.
Yeah.
So it's like, you do need to stay positive that we can do this, but we can do this better. I'm always in that realm.
I have a question for you. How much of that is because you're like a maker yourself, right? You're a woodworker and everything else. So do you think that you're more critical in those instances?
Probably.
Because I think that some of these could be like, yep, I built that building and it's awesome because I was part of it. Yeah. Let's move on to the next one. And they don't sweat those details like you do.
To the point of, roofing, once again, it's weird that we got on roofing, but you build this building and roofing is kind of like the last 1% of the whole project that, if it's either good or it's not. It either leaks or it doesn't, right? But it's necessary to make that a successful project.
Sure.
So when I'm walking on a roof, I look at it like, look, this is not what I do. I'm not interested in it. But hey, nice job, guys. Thanks. Now get the hell off my roof so I can do some real construction in my head.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
so there's a snobbery in construction?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so
trade to trade.
Who's the highest on the food chain?
Oh, pipe fitters.
Well, Clint the pipe fitter, because that's where you started, right? So that's why you think that.
Yeah.
So is that a true, or is that just your bias?
It's true.
We're getting nowhere. Go ahead, John.
You were expecting
nowhere.
Like any other answer other than that. You were
well. I was an electrician when I was in the Navy, and I kind of feel like that's the higher end of the thinking man who's in construction.
Oh God, plug the wire in, Jesus! It's not that big of a deal.
that is.
It's red, black, white, or green.
Exactly. That's why I was an electrician.
So I'm thinking it really must be the foundation, because if you have a jacked up foundation, the whole thing's.
Hey, I got a lot of respect for those guys. The civil guys, absolutely. The things they can do, these roadways that they build out here.
Yeah.
To go through these, like where I grew up in the Midwest, the cloverleaf style interchanges, and then to see what they've done in DFW or Houston with the 42 bridges cutting in.
Crazy.
I mean, that is absolutely an awesome flow of traffic, and the way they can build those, it's crazy to me, right? So yeah, there is a huge, like, because everybody's passionate about what they do in construction, you have that, I think I'm better, but you just put, it's a whole competition, you push each other.
Well, it's just, we got an Army guy, a Navy guy, and a Marine guy, right? And, depending upon when you talk to us, we probably had a little bit of ego around our branch of service, right?
No, not me, never.
Yeah, no. Definitely.
I like the Marines though that I was around. Well, I mean, the utility of
God bless our Marines.
They're like one-dimensional, run with scissors kind of attitude. I've got this, right?
So we have a listener right now that is about to accept a job selling widgets. How would you like to help them be inspired?
I think you got to figure out where your motivators are, right? Like what's going to motivate you to get up and go do the hard shit that's part of sales, right? Because you're gonna get bad days, right? They're gonna happen, and if you're waiting for motivation to make you go do that hard stuff, you're never gonna get there, right? It's like when you're waiting to feel like going to the gym, like unless you already have a habit that's built and everything else, like you just never go, right? So
you always think about it though.
Well, yeah, I just think that
one day I'm going to the gym.
I think that motivation could be different things, right? If you're money motivated and you're gonna make a lot of money, awesome, that's great. If you're a refinement person and you get to go learn something new, then and that gets you jazzed up, awesome. How do you keep learning so that you don't have to keep job hopping? I mean, I've had lots of jobs, and we've talked about this I think in the past, but I think that all of that kind of leads me to here. But now that I'm doing this thing and every client's a little bit different, I have that newness all the time, so I don't ever really get bored.
But there's a nice key component to what we do in sales. It's universal, right? That everybody needs some kind of, we're primarily, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in construction, IT, process oriented, if you can sell through a process, then you can pick and choose whether you want to be in real estate and work really hard on the weekends and have the week free. Right. So you can build the lifestyle that you want to live. And if you say, hey, I really don't want to work super hard at $50,000, $60,000 a year because all my major assets have been acquired, I'm in the twilight of my years, use the skill set that you have and then pick the lifestyle that you want to live. That's the best of both worlds, in my opinion.
Do you think that, this is slightly off topic, but I'm curious, do you think that turning your passion into a business is a bad idea?
Yes. It can be.
I think it
and
can
there's
be
a
as well.
real good book out there. It's called the EMyth. Right?
Why
do people want to become entrepreneurs? A quick read. And it really is insightful for the guy who's in this example making birdhouses. He's real good at making birdhouses, but then he wants a business, and he realizes he's now got to be a businessman, not a birdhouse maker, which is where his passion is. So be careful what you want and aspire to, because you can get to the end of the road. You've put a lot of time, money, and effort, and it's just not satisfying.
Yeah, I feel like everybody that I know that's ever tried to start a business around a passion, it always has ended up in ultimate failure. Because now you don't have your passion anymore because it comes work, right? And then if it fails, now you hate your own passion, and you're lost. Right?
And you usually sink your teeth in so hard because it's passion. You go down with the ship instead of saying, "I'm declaring bankruptcy. And I'm getting rid of this."
And you probably drag a lot of people with you. It's not just you.
Well, or you have to have some hard conversations. Hey, I didn't get this done, and it's you're somebody that came on board because they felt your passion, but you just didn't manage appropriately, and then you ran out of money. And again, banks only like you when you have money, bitches.
And for me, that was woodworking, right? Because I've gotten to a point where I could say I could do this full time and make money at it, right? I'm at that point where this either needs to be a full-time hobby where I'm making this work, or I need to dump this hobby to focus on the stuff that actually gives me income in my life, right? And I've always been asked, why wouldn't you seem like a guy that would just go start a business? I've always the guy that we all know has always said that to me, like, I can't believe that you work for people. Like, but I don't like that thought of turning in what I love into work.
Okay, and you just brought up an interesting point, because there are people that I know, and I've contemplated this, that had their own business, had a level of success, but also look back and say, I could have been one of the great moguls. I'm that good at it. I have a cousin who's sold a number of business. Now he does consulting, and his biggest issue is he didn't go the pedigree route of getting nabbed out of college with an MBA, getting thrown into the environment of climbing that corporate ladder like you're doing, and then VP. And like you said, I'm not a president, but you're only in your 30s, man. Wow, where are you going to be at 60? You're going to be in the bomb with jet airplanes at your disposal.
Retired.
And I like that idea too. But you know what I'm saying?
Fishing.
However further that you go, it only gets better for you and more enriching, right? The rung above you's got to be pretty damn sweet, because I know the rung you're on is pretty sweet.
Yeah, and I look at it too. There's probably a level where I'd be satisfied at to not go any further, because then it truly becomes an additional stressor. Or sometimes you even make less, right? You take on a role that you make less at, but it's more responsibility. It's like
that first step in management.
Well, and then you also balance. You have 3 kids; they're still fairly small, right? What does it look like when they're in their teenage years, and then they leave the? So there's a bigger dynamic here because job fits with family, and family fits with job. So you're doing this balancing act, and at a certain point, again, it should shift that it's not so money motivated as it is time and quality of life motivated.
It's true, because to that point, right, is like a rung above me would be best case scenario for me, in my company. But then the rung above that, probably making way more money at that point. But you're probably the stress of running 6 or 7 companies instead of the one, and you're traveling all over God's green earth with 3 kids. Like, there is a balance there, right? So there is a switch of the money motivation side to where you need to be realistic with yourself of why you're there.
So I worked for a couple of banks, and when I went to work for the first one, I was super excited because it was not really retail anymore, right? Like, no Sundays, and you don't have to deal with some of the stuff that you have to in retail. And then I left that bank and went to another bank. And you get in there, and banking is like a very tried and true, there's not a whole lot of disruption or change or really anybody trying to do anything differently, And I remember very clearly, and I was like, oh, we don't do anything different here. Like this is the same thing with like a different paint job. And my boss at the time was like, well, you're worth the difference. And I was like, what? And like at this time I'm 30 years old and, not very confident in myself. I had all the imposter syndrome. My kid's an infant, and I'm like, wait, the only way I'm going to make money is like on me, like I have to carry this brand, and I just hated it because it's just like, we're not trying to do anything different. We're not trying to do anything innovative. It's just
still money, right?
Yeah.
And it counts.
Yeah.
Checking or savings.
Sorry, I had something but then I heard checking and savings and had like a flashback for a moment.
Yeah, you cold sweat pouring down.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is it checking or is it savings?
Yeah. How many DDAs did you open the day? Oh,
what's a DDA?
It's a checking account.
Oh, okay.
That's
inside lingo.
Yeah, inside baseball.
Wow. That's when I'm like, put it in my DDA. My banker's gonna, my teller's gonna hear that.
The banker goes, "Are you sure?"
Because that's Doug's
Trust me, son,
alcohol allowance.
So, do you going back to the thing we're talking about a moment ago about the concern of turning your passion into a business? Do you think that that's a framing issue? Like, just like, do you think that there's a way of thinking about it and building it in your head so that way you don't go down that path of torching something that you're passionate about and really enjoy?
Yeah, I think that when you're the worker bee in that passion, you're gonna set yourself up to cap yourself out just with time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just time and energy. You're gonna cap yourself out really quickly, right? So you have to. I think the first step is, like you said, frame that business to where you're bringing other people that are also passionate about it, and you split the load, right? So I think to set up a successful business around a passion, you have to surround yourself with people that are also passionate in that to divide and conquer the load of what it takes to do it. And you go in because you don't have the cash flow, right? You're putting everything into probably everything you've ever earned into it, and it's all you. It's all on you. So every mistake is on you. Every extra hour needed to input is on you. I think that's probably where people get hung up and failed.
I go back to read the EMyth.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, did we give that away as a book, part of our book thing in the beginning?
I don't think we did.
Well,
but it's a solid book. We should.
I think if you listen to this episode, comment on that. We'll buy one book, right?
Yeah,
and do a little raffle.
Giveaway,
we'll do a giveaway. Yeah, because I think it's that important. It's such a good book.
If you hashtag Team I, he'll buy it for you.
Not for everybody. For one, the first I to hit hashtag I. Yeah, you'll get one too. So there'll be 2 books.
But
I'm serious.
I'm hashtagging it right now.
I had a client, and he's in the marketing space, and we were talking about like where he was trying to go and what he was trying to do. And he was like, I want to be at 100K per month, right? And people normally pick these goals
like top line sales, or income,
no revenue,
okay.
Right? And I was like, okay, awesome. And so we're kind of breaking down how many clients he needs at his thing, and it was going to be like 30 clients, and
a month, reoccurring 30, or just get to 30 and you can generate 100K?
Just recurring,
okay,
right? Because it's a service based business, right? So there's quote unquote mailbox money. It's
right.
not
Once
really
you got a
mailbox
contract,
money.
it's recurring.
They just stay there. You got to perform, but
as long as you do your job, they'll stick around.
And so I was like, okay, so we're talking about you're going to have 30 clients that you're working for. And he's like, yeah, he's getting super excited. And I said, hey, I have a question for you. And he goes, okay. And I said, how important is it that you get to do the creative aspect of this? Like writing, subject lines and writing copy and everything else. And he's like, man, I love that stuff. It really gets me excited. And I was like, look, if you have 30 clients, you're not doing any of that anymore, unless you replace yourself as, the CEO, which some people do because they figure out that like, hey, I'm a good founder, but I'm not a good CEO. And like, I just want to work. And he was like, oh, I said, yeah, you're managing people that are doing that at that kind of scale. You don't get, unless you're very diligent about carving out that time, you're not doing that stuff anymore. And he was like, oh,
yourself. Just like Clint was talking about the last episode.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think every company I've worked for in construction has all started with one guy and a truck with tools. And he's
really solid. The company you work for now. That's
absolutely,
how it goes.
Oh, really?
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about I get a little bit of money. I buy my competition. Now I'm this big, and now we can buy other competition. And that's the company I work for. That's what they do every day. Yeah. The first company I ever worked for in construction literally started with one guy in a truck. And he worked for another company and said, I can do this on my own, which, many of us all do break off and do that. But eventually you've got to realize that, okay, now I have a company. I can't be out here every day because who's running payroll? Yeah. Who's running this kind of stuff?
So you just brought up an interesting point. So part of this, passion, love for what you do, if you need the support of a company, for whatever reason, whether it's because I got family and that's more important, you've got to make those decisions, because if you think I outpace everybody here and I do more for my company than my company does for me, that's a good equation to take that, right? That motivation to go ahead and get all the extra off the table and put it into your own pocket. That then makes it worth the effort, because there is a lot of effort to go out on your own. Sure.
Yeah, and it's not a good fit.
And
for
don't
everybody.
fool yourself if you're not good enough to do that. I'm sorry, those are some harsh words.
Yeah, because every company that gets to like a level to where like you're buying up your competition and growing and everything else, there's 15 other people that try it and fail miserably because they don't balance their time.
Or they weren't good enough at what they do. They had false bravado. They thought.
I think you can be really, really good at what you do and still fail.
Oh, absolutely. Right. It is a unique combination to go out on your own.
Yeah. The show that comes to mind in this whole topic is the show Shark Tank, right?
Yeah.
It's constant there. Because one of the things that I love about, I think they call him Mr. Wonderful. Is that his name? I can't remember his name. I don't remember his name in real life. But anyway, in that show, he's constantly like, just sell me your business. I'll give you a check for $1 million. Just sell it to me and I'll give you royalties, right? He loves to make those deals. And I'm on the couch screaming, do it, because if you don't take this deal, you're going to ride this to maybe you'll come out successful, but you're a small percentage, right? Yeah. So take this and run with it, and then take that money and do it again, right?
I was about to say, you never go wrong. Well, you can go wrong, but if you're taking profit and you created that, you can do what you said. Then you got to sit out maybe for a year. Sure. You got to move the distance that you need to move. But these serial entrepreneurs, that's part of their genre. They're not there for the long run. They're there to develop and then turn it over to somebody else that's going to scale it up or take it to the next level.
To the whole point of that show, like why those guys are there is because they just constantly fill market needs, right? They're not attached to these businesses. Yeah, they're passionate about the
and they
money
like to see success. Right. Yeah, I
mean they're passionate about the success and the money that comes off of it. But whether you're selling widgets anything. Or shoestrings or the new widget,
but they do stay in certain genres, which is good because you want to do something you know something about, because then you know how to value it.
Because of the experience that they have, they know that they're going to be successful, which they get fulfillment and enjoyment off of. So,
and I like that too. I mean, I have a little bit of that in me.
Yeah. So to the point of, do you turn your passion into a business? I would say to start a business, if I were to start a business, it would be because the market needs the business at the time. That would be the only way that I would jump in and be an
everybody needs good wooden furniture. So why aren't you jumping ship and doing it?
Because the market isn't that needy for it. There's other
a lot of guys doing that.
Yeah. There's
a lot of mom and pop kind of scenarios.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we came up with a new widget today and it's never been invented. That's where I would jump in because
okay.
You see what I mean?
But I still go back to, I love sales. I mean, I like the engagement. I know Nan does. I mean, you speak to that. I mean, you like what you do.
You like sales. What is the reason you like sales?
I like the engagement. I like the challenge. I like the fact, I mean, I don't like getting the door slammed in my face, but you know it's going to happen.
Just part of life.
And it actually, it amps you up. You're like, you know, that's.
I think it's the role that has the opportunity to give you the most change in your routine, right? And because you know, you could be in the office, you can be knocking out emails and follow-ups and like, you know, managing all that stuff, or you can get out there on the street, you can call, you can do, you know, your networking coffees or whatever those behaviors are, but it can change from day to day, right? So if you're a person who gets bored fairly easily, like mix up the process a little bit, you know, like change up the prospecting, you know, whatever that looks like.
And you can take that process and change it. You know, you're not locked in because you're doing phone sales for AT&T, say, or you know, one of the big telecoms. You know, that's kind of like sit in a cubicle, but maybe that feels good to people who are successful in that arena. But with the same skill set, you can go sell Mercedes-Benz or a high-end car or a used car. There's more money in that than there is the high-end stuff. You see what I'm saying? You can take that endeavor into your passion because you now have the process. And so you build the best case scenario for yourself.
I don't know that I've ever said this on here or not, but I'll be really honest with you that I got into sales because I felt like it was the quickest way to the top of a corporate ladder, sales or money managing. Right.
Interesting.
Like that operations guy has he's probably got a lot of people in front of him, right? Because there's more operating people than, you know, the other side of the house usually. You know, otherwise you're a really top heavy company that, you know, you need to take a look at anyway. But the point of it is, if you're like in my business, if you're a welder, man, the rungs that you have to climb.
Yeah, to be the foreman or the lead,
superintendent, and then you go into management.
And that's a long game.
Yeah. So if I started at the bottom, became a pretty decent pipe fitter, did those other little jobs for a little bit, but then took a right turn exit out of it and got into sales, which eventually led to management. So now, you know, there's guys that I worked with 7 or 8 years ago, nothing against them. It just that's not the path they wanted to be on. It was the path I wanted to be on. But the opportunities that I have in front of me versus they're still maybe welding in the field to, you know, right now, most of them probably are. That was attractive to me. And that's why I took that right turn into sales.
If you're good at sales and you continue to challenge yourself, you will always have a job. I mean, it is just one of those.
If you're willing to face the challenges of sales and get good at that, like you said, you can be a pipe fitter. You can come from raising kids into pharmaceutical. I mean, that door is always capable of being opened if you have the desire and the want to learn a skill set that's repeatable and monetizable. Yeah. Which means volume. I mean, you got to sell enough of whatever you're trying to sell to cover your bills and then have some left over, and you got to like it or not like it, but be able to do it.
Well, you need to know your stuff. You need to know what you're selling.
And to that point, to that point is exactly what I was about to say is that in sales, you learn a little bit about everything going on in your company because it's just forced upon you, whether you like it or not.
You should.
And how deep you go into that rabbit hole is on you. Probably for most of us, especially me and you, John, we dive off and want to know every aspect of every little thing, right? So what's more attractive when there is a CEO position opened up? Who do you want there? Do you want the guy that knows one avenue in the company? Or do you want the, you know, for myself, that was what in my head, it's like, I want the field knowledge. I want the technical knowledge. I want the sales knowledge. I want the finance knowledge. Like, so I'm trying to gain all those and sales is a great avenue for that if you're trying to do.
Well, because you get to interact with all those different departments. Where if you're just out in the field, like you said, you're the pipe fitter or you're part of it.
They're both great livings. It's got to be what you want to do.
But at the end of the day, your utility to the overall company is not. It's there. Don't get me wrong. But if I know the CFO, because I've had to go talk budgets with him, right? And I know the welder that's out there in the field because I've had to go inspect his work or tell him to change something. You're spanning the gap from the ivory tower down to the man on the street. That's a great place to be in. Like to speak to you, you're more of a candidate to move through that company and move to the top because you're connecting all the dots.
I mean that's, but to that point, that's why I got in sales. Like, Nan, you say you're passionate about it, right? And I get that, you know, because I like what I do, but that's not the reason I'm in it. You know, I don't go to work every day because I love to just go out and sell something. That's part of it, but it's not all of it.
I just love to hit numbers. I think it's really a challenge. It's like a game every day, and I just love that. You know, to me that's exciting. Not just going. I remember my boss used to, not this boss, but my boss used to go, "Oh my gosh, do you know how much you're gonna?" And I was like, "I want to know the numbers." That was just way more important to me.
Sure. And we all have different motivators while we're here.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. I got into sales because when I got home from the Army, I wasn't sure what I wanted to go back to school for, right? And I had been waiting tables for a while, so like I was kind of used to, talking to people a lot. And I was like, well, let's just go try this, right? Because, you can get your foot in the door in sales without having like, a big pedigree behind you or whatever. And then I got in there, and I remember very, very clearly getting hired at T-Mobile first time, like a real like full-on sales role. And this guy who I'm still friends with, we chat all the time. He was like, "Man, you're gonna crush. Like, you're gonna make so much money in this role." And I was kind of like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." It's like a retail mall location, how much money am I really gonna make, right? And so then I'm 25 years old, making like 75K, which is like
wow.
Yeah. I mean,
it
was
pretty sweet.
If you're, I can't really speak to it now because I'm not in that world, but like back then, like wireless sales was the jam, right? Because
I can see that.
It
was just phones were churning pretty quickly,
absolutely, right? And everybody wants a new one every 2 years, and then accessories on top of that, and our producer Paul, me and him worked in the same company, right?
Oh,
and so
I forgot that. Yeah,
we talked about this at length, I mean, and then in 2010, 2000 and man, what year was that? I remember, but 2008, I go to work for AT&T, like right as they're about to launch the iPhone 3G, and it was madhouse. Like,
you couldn't get them sold fast enough.
Yeah, well, and then Apple does a really good job of like shorting the supply, so that way everyone's talking about
driving the bus.
The lines are so long to get an iPhone and everything else.
I remember that they'd camp out.
Absolutely.
They had those long barriers, sitting behind camping
iPhone launch day. I was working at an AT&T location, and we all had to work 12-hour shifts, right? Like they're like, "We're bringing in lunch. You guys cannot leave. If you need a bathroom break, we got people on reserve." I mean, it was crazy. I probably did, I don't know, probably like 30 phones that day. Like, I mean,
what's a normal day?
May like 3 to 4 is like a pretty as far as like customers go of like actually, and then some people need 3 lines and some people want 2 and things like this. But it was just like it was the smoothest day ever, right? And as a C, I loved it because I didn't have to go out, I didn't have to go greet anybody. It's just like, cool, you want the white one or the black one, and you want the 16 gig or the 32 gig,
That's so funny.
and do you want a case,
like
right? And it was just
shooting
like
fish in a barrel. Yeah,
man, I've never been so happy to be an order taker, other than on that day, because it was just people lined up. It was insane.
You brought up an interesting point. If you can get your pipeline stocked enough,
deep,
then you become an order taker, right?
Yeah.
And you then start looking at creative ways to build hype within your own sales community, your accounts.
Yeah.
Hey, look what's coming out. Drop in hints. Have you been having problems here? There's a whole culture to your evolution in sales. And it's similar in all, I think, in all aspects.
Yeah,
because when you first step,
I did that in this market in Dallas Fort Worth. Is that I came in knew nobody, right? I knew 0 companies to do business with, and it took me probably, I'll say a good 9 months to a year.
Yeah, it takes a minute
to develop that portfolio, and that portfolio was a very long list of people. And then about a year later of doing business, that shrunk to like 7 or 8 people.
Didn't you go on the warpath to get rid of your bad clients?
I did.
Because you had that capability. How cool was that?
So I built that portfolio to where I had good customers. And
Don't call me.
But I was literally saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not even going to talk to you about this project." What? What do you mean?
Oh,
you've always done this, and it's like, look, one, I don't have the capacity. Just being real, and 2, you get to throw facts out there, and man, what a great spot that is to be in. It's like, hey, I've never had a successful project with you. The ones that we have done, I didn't make any money, or we made little money.
Yeah.
And I have option B over here to go do this project. I'm taking option B. The conversations at that level to have with your own customers or potential customers, to tell them no because I'm have this going on. I mean, it's
that's the power stroke right there.
Well,
not in a bad way, meaning like, I just have this capability, so I'm going to exercise it.
Well, you
thanks for
created it,
wanting to do business, but
you're
it's
right.
just,
it was created.
Right. It's not just
you
given to
built
you.
it.
You've created it.
Well, I remember very clearly. I was getting a little ahead of myself, and I had what I felt like was a decent pipeline. I had about 10 deals in there in various stages, and I'm super excited. This is
You're talking about right now, or
no? This is when I first got into the website business, and was working with my business partner, and so we had a coach, and he was like, okay, cool, let's take a look at your pipeline, So I'm like, oh yeah, sure, absolutely, right. And I have my laptop, I pull it out, and he goes, okay, cool, you don't have enough in there. And I was like, no, like I got plenty in there. And he goes, no, you don't. Go get like 15 more. And I was like, okay, cool, right? So then I went and got 15 more, and I felt better, right? And I was more confident. I could tell people no. I could go for the no. I could do these things that are super important for like, having clarity in the conversation. So then I come back and I'm like, yeah, got it. Now, check it out now. And he's like, go get 20 more, right? And like for like 6 months, every time I saw him, he was like, yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough. And what's crazy is, until you have like that deep of a pipeline, you don't understand like the value, the calm that like washes over you, right? And I think you can hit a point to where like you have so much in there that like anxiety starts to flare up because like you're concerned about like stuff falling through the cracks. Yeah, exactly. But
that's a balancing act.
But I was like on this path of like going and going and going and going and going. And so like at one point I had like 70 deals, and I was like, man, this is awesome. And I'm just disqualifying like a wizard, I'm just like, oh yeah, no, sorry, this ain't gonna work. We're not the right people. Gotta go. And so if you are struggling with like standing your ground and all these things, like go get more stuff in your pipeline. Like go prospect your ass off and get
exactly. You knock on some more doors, like prospecting, however you go out and gain your clients. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just do more of what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
And make sure you're on that clock working for yourself. Push, push, push.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a little interested to hear, because what you just said is you live in a market where you can go get 60 more, right?
Yeah.
So there is some territorial stuff here too that we probably should talk about, because some of our people that follow us the most, and they actually use us in their sales meetings, and they talk about our podcast. And I know their business. They're in the middle of cornfields, right?
Yeah.
In banking in the Midwest, like there is just not that many opportunities. There's not that many customers. You're going to know everybody within a couple weeks in your business. So your pipeline is maybe 6 or 7 clients, right? And that's the best you can do. And you have to maximize all the potential out of that, right? And how do you, if you're a potential, hey, I need to grow, and somebody gives you, so that's the realistic expectations that you set for yourself, that I can only do this much because it's the market I live in, and you can't shoot for the moon, too quickly.
Yeah.
But in those industries, wouldn't you agree they've gotten innovative in online banking and being able to pick up the phone and say, hey, we're a little bit smaller, but your reach can be further, particularly in banking. Now, it doesn't work in every industry.
But there's still a limitation there.
Yeah.
Right?
And my thought too is that in that instance, I would tell all of them is grow the revenue side, grow the bottom line out of the business that you have, right?
Sure.
So you kind of max out your market on the sales side. Maybe it's 10 million a year. Now you need to look at the bottom line, and how do you get the customers, to help you grow your bottom line underneath that sales cap.
That's one of the first questions I ask people is like, okay, of the clients that you have, right, and the deals that you've done, like which one has been the most profitable for you? Like where do you kill it for your clients, and which ones like make you the most money? And then inevitably it's only like one or two, very, very specific things. It's like, okay, let's double down on this, right? And let's cut all this chaff, right? Which is everything you talk about every time, you're talking about, cutting people out and working with the right kind of people. But a lot of people are just, they're caught up in this paradigm of more, right? They just see more clients, and they don't ever look back at what they have.
And a sales leader gets caught in that probably more than anybody, right?
Yeah, the guy above,
because everybody focuses on that. Well, I did 32 million, I did 42 the next year, I did 60 the next. Right? Those are good numbers, but if your bottom line didn't grow at the same level,
absolutely,
then what's the point, right? Because you're actually, in my book, you're actually losing.
Yeah.
And the company I worked at before, I would constantly beg them, let's take a growth break, right? And as a CEO, and people that are probably looking to get out in the next 10 years, they want that as high as they can.
Well, or beholding to shareholders and other factors start to filter in,
making it look attractive, so somebody else will buy you out,
or
so you
buy
can
the
get
stock,
out, right?
or acquisitions. Absolutely.
So there's that level, right? But as a mid-level salesperson, I wanted them to quit telling me to grow 10% this year. No, 16's not our number this year. Let's grow 8 and grow our bottom line. Let's double our bottom line, right? Well, because to me, that's the important growth. So we were talking about passion, what you do. For me, that was a big passion of mine, was to be able to make more money on the same amount of sales. And I really invested in that.
Yeah. Right. Sometimes when I'm talking to people, I say, what happened if you doubled your prices? Right. With like a lot of consultants and people that I work with around, the process generation. And they'll, well, if I double my prices, I'm going to lose some clients. Are you going to lose half your clients?
Yeah.
Well, no, maybe a third.
Then you come out ahead.
Yeah. So you're winning.
Particularly if they're all if you're keeping the ones that are volume based versus, Yeah.
And to that point, right? Like I talk about this with I don't know if I've said it on here or whatever, but it's so easy to look at the wrong metrics, right? And when you're just pulling one metric out of the air without any correlation to any other metrics, right? Like you might be $1 million company, but if you have a $1.5 million run rate, like you're losing, right? And I know a lot of people in the like digital entrepreneur space, these consultants and stuff, and they talk about their revenue amount, and I'm like, I could care less about your revenue amount. Like, what are your margins and how much are you keeping, and and things like that. Like,
and what's your overhead look like?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are your fixed costs? All those factors.
And that's interesting, because when I came to the company I work at now, that was the first thing. It was kind of a breath of fresh air. Somebody sat down with me in financials and said, "Look, this is what I need you to bring in a month, profit wise." That was a whole nother outlook on sales that nobody's ever really done with me before. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier.
You just brought up an interesting point. If you guys are out there doing the grind and you're a frontline sales individual, your fixed costs become your vehicle, your apartment that you live in or house that you own. And if you start looking at that dynamic as you just enter into this business and you're not counting on fluctuations in your client base, you're going to be always stressed, right? So, the key factors are build a humble attitude with the money that you're making, meaning live underneath that. And then you take that pressure away. And then
everything else is easier,
now
right?
You've got
it's
the
like
time.
The pipeline
now
thing
you've
again.
got the time to build that pipeline and wait it out. Guys, be careful. Don't get ghetto rich on yourself, right? Don't get drunk on the little bit of Kool-Aid that's in the bottom of the cup. Make sure the cup is full.
Yeah, and then a virus comes around and you're screwed.
One little blip, and you sit here holding your breath, thinking, "How am I going to make all my payments?" Whereas,
be wise.
If it's all paid for, you're now saying my overhead's just my variables, right?
Yeah.
How much electricity I used, how hot or cold was it, and how did the thermostat, water and food.
I mean, I worked with a coach and we went through this process. Like, okay, what's your monthly nut, right? And how much do you need to make? And then what are the annual costs? And divide that by 12, and then divide that by 22 working days in a month or whatever. And it's like when you get out of bed, you're already this far behind, right? And if that doesn't motivate you, then you're gonna struggle. Right.
Well, and what happens, you'd be amazed at the number of people that don't even know what those numbers are.
Oh, man.
And you're more in the genre of wanting to know. I tend to just go, well, okay, there's this much, so I know what my cushion is. So I'm at a point where I've got some variability. As long as there's this much money in the bank, I know I've got 6 months to a year where I could make it.
Yeah, and to the point of like the passion project turning, being an entrepreneur, taking that passion project, it's actually funny because what we just talked about is why I didn't dive forward on the woodworking side, right? Because I knew at that point that I'm doing this as a hobby, and I'm selling stuff, but I'm selling it. I'm not putting my own time on it, right? This is a hobby, so I don't count my time in the hourly rate that I put into this. So the profits.
Oh man.
So to that point, it's like I bought materials, and then whatever I could sell, everything after that was all profit.
Yeah.
And so I could sell a table at $600, where once I put my time in there and all my overhead that it takes to get in there, now it's a $3,000 table. And who's going to buy the $600 table for $3,000, right? And those realistic metrics, on the front end is like, it's just not possible.
So that's a hugely important point. When we were starting the website company, we had a team of developers, right? And talking about like the black holes that I go in, Jeff, my business partner, was always, you cannot go learn how to be a website developer. Like, we do not have time for that, because I would want to know more, right? Because I'm like, if I know more, then I can sell better, and all these things, which is not really true. But there were so many of these people that are like starting the entrepreneurial thing, and what they do is they're not counting their time, right? So the best thing we did was like, it framed it as a business for me, right? Because I couldn't really just, oh, well, you know what? I'll throw another couple hours in this because it's going to make them happier. Like every hour that we did had a hard cost associated with it. And that forced me to really kind of treat it more like a business. And when you're, a consultant, if you're like a creator, a graphic designer, or something like these, you've got, and you want to be successful, you really have to treat it as a business, and you got to be thinking about your time. And one of the best things you can do is like outsource that stuff early, so that way it forces you to,
or you get into that pattern, right?
Yeah.
It's so that you focus on your profit centers or the actions that make you profit and make you money, and then the delegation of the service component or the design component. Those are outside that sales realm. They're more the actual work that needs to be done that you sold to the client. Yeah, I mean, those are big factors that you have to distinguish. You got to keep them straight in your mind.
Absolutely.
Because it's easy to fool yourself. We're just prone to want to do that.
Well, we've talked about this book a couple of times on this episode, but the EMyth is about that very, very thing, right? Because the guy who's building birdhouses, right, he gets super busy, and then he's like, oh my God, I don't have to do this anymore. Let me go hire someone else, right? And then a lot of the book is about how people delegate just by, this is yours now, go get it.
By abdication.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I don't want to know any, you just show me
there's
the
no
results.
Process. There's none of these things that
are
checks
and
important.
balance. There are things that can give you insight into other people around you and the success they're either having doing the process or what you design.
And then what normally happens is people don't outsource the thing that they love because they want to hold on to that. So what they do is they outsource the things that they've been kind of hodgepodging and not getting fulfillment from, which is not a bad thing. But then what happens is you've got expectations about how you want that kind of stuff done if you've been doing it for a while. And if you delegate just by abdication and say, cool, go do this, there's so much opportunity for, and I mean, this is straight from the book.
Underperformance and mistakes.
Or just like a mismatch in how the process works, right? And then you get pissed at this person and then you fire them and then you got to do it all again. And it's just like, there's better ways of doing these kinds of things. What time is it? Oh yeah, let's throw down. Man, this has been a pretty wide ranging,
left
so
and right along.
Passion, delivery, how tied do you need to be?
Completely unusual
to it,
for us.
Entrepreneur, all of those things, So Clint, what are your thoughts for Team D?
Yeah, so if your disc profile reads in that D range heavily, you're probably not asking yourself a lot of why questions on why you're doing this, how do you feel about it. It's just a gut driven, I'm great at this and I'll be better than anybody else that's ever done this. You kind of got that big head about it. I would challenge you, if you feel that you really don't know where you stand on the passion side of it, start asking questions why you're going to work every day. And you'll go down these subcategories, down this rabbit hole, and eventually you'll get to certain things. So if I did that in my own head, in my own business, I would get down to, one of these days I want to retire young and fish my days out on the open sea, right? That's my whys at the end of it. Why do I do this every day? Well, I want to get there. Why do I do that? Well, because I want to get to this point. So if you don't know where you stand and you don't know the answers, just literally you could jot it down or just do it in your head. Take 30 seconds. But you're eventually going to get to a why, and that's probably your passion. And what you do to get there, how you get there, you need to figure that out and map it out. So maybe you don't love the business you're in, but it's a means to an end to get to what you want to do for the rest of your life. So.
Yeah, and some people are totally okay with that, right? Like I can't get motivated about that far out, right? I need to have some interest in the thing that I'm doing, which is kind of what we've been talking about this whole time. Al, for eyes.
I think that if you're in sales, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, it's an entrepreneurial endeavor, and it becomes your book of business, which is your business at that point. Now, you're paying royalties up to your company, or vice versa. They're paying royalties down to you for the business that you've brought in. So you are an entrepreneur, and it should have that kind of, you should have that mindset. And if that creates passion and intensity and desire, then you're in a good place. If it doesn't, if it scares you, it terrifies you, and you can't get past all of that or whatever the hurdles are, you're going to have problems in this industry. So face that, understand yourself first, and then apply your understanding to the, whatever you product or business line or field that you want to get into. It's all out there. Go get it.
Awesome. And that.
So we've been talking a lot about passion, and another word, desire. To me, desire is the starting point of achievement. So if you want to meet your desire, your passion, you have to push yourself take risk, and then you'll have an achievement. But looking at a widget and going, "Oh, I can't do it." That's what I love. What Clint said. Just think with the end in mind. I've heard that before, but I think that's like really good advice. Driving down the street and in sales, I think you just have to really look at the big picture.
Wow. Okay. For Team C, I guess 2 nuggets. The first thing is, I feel like most people, when they get into the entrepreneurial thing, they can't shut up about it, and they're going around telling everybody that they should be an entrepreneur, and I disagree with that because it's not for everybody. I do agree with Al's point that if you can sell, you're closer to being an entrepreneur and having the skill set that is super important, because until you hire someone else to sell, you are the salesperson. And that is terrifying. And I think that if sales was a little bit more approachable, then we would have a lot more cool people doing really cool things, because they wouldn't be terrified of, and I got a really cool idea, but I don't want to sell, right? So, not everybody's a candidate for it, but that's okay. The other thing that I think is really important is how you frame your success, right? If the only way you win is when you get a yes from a prospect, you are going to have some bad days, right?
Absolutely.
Because then every no is more hurtful, it's personal, and everything else like this. So, there were levers around that, right? For me, I'm a process guy, right? If I follow my process and I get a no, I'm good. I don't care. Let's go on to the next one, right? Whereas if I get a yes, but I didn't follow my process and I got lucky, I'm pissed at myself. I'm like, man, wow, this, because I'm a process guy. So watch how you're framing stuff in your value, and kind of, make sure that you're looking at it the right way, because you're not going to get a yes from everybody. So don't make that your successful thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, everybody. So if you are on social media, as I think pretty much everybody is in one form or another, follow us. Everything is at Sales Throwdown, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you have not taken this assessment and you're not sure where you are, or if you're thinking about starting something and you're not sure in which one of these seats you sit, the assessment will help you tremendously. So if you want to take one and you want to take a real one and not one of the free ones, send us an email, assessments@salesthrowdown.com. What you got going
on the social media side? We have been putting out, if you haven't checked us out on Instagram, we are putting out some videos of us kind of in our daily life.
Outtakes, sure.
Little struggles, little 1-minute videos of struggles that we're dealing with every day. Those are just important to comment on too, so we can get some feedback there. So check us out.
And don't forget, we will be giving the EMyth to one of our listeners. So make a comment relative to this episode, and we'll put you in the hat for the drawing, and we'll announce who won, and they can do the end zone dance in their own.
And we're going to very, very quickly do a giveaway for one of the assessments, right? So, trying to grow the audience and everything else like this. So be on the lookout for that. The more you share, the more entries you get. And if you win, you'll get to do the assessment, and one of us will be on the phone with you to go over that information and really make sure that you understand kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, and the option, just so you're aware out there, that we will always, we would love to take some phone calls. We would love to come to your business, talk to you, relatively if it's
don't be afraid
feasible,
to reach out. Sure,
but we'd love to look at that with you as well.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Go sell something.
All right.